Welcome to Trading Lounge and the Australian report and the ASX 200 here, and we can see that the market has moved up nicely here, and we can look at this pretty much here as wave 1, 2 and 3 here. I don't know if this wave 3 here is actually finished. This is something that we need to talk about today, looking at one more little move up through here, and then having wave 4 coming back to the wave 4 of one lesser degree. And wave 4 is normally complicated if wave 2 is simple, which it is, and then wave 5 up. So normally when a market's moving up, we would also be concerned about the 61.8% retracement level from the high to the low here, which takes us in through about here, and we can see that that's breached here. We can also see in some of the sectors as well, the Australian sectors, that some of the sectors are actually moved up above this high here. This particular market here is really dominated by the banks. All the big banks pretty much trade more than the materials sector, but we know that the materials sector, especially the small caps and then the mid caps, any of those that mid caps can get into the ASX 200, the smaller tiers, that some of them are really moving quite nicely. And as we looked before, if I can just bring up some sectors here, I think it's good to have a look at the sectors. So this is the ASX 200 here. This is the All Ordinaries here, which includes, is it the top 500 stocks, which is higher, coming in on the high up here. If we look down at the small caps here, for the ASX 200 here, we can see that from the 2016 low here, that these guys are really hammering it to the upside. I don't normally follow the smaller stocks. I normally stay within the CFD range, but these are really sort of leading to the upside. And we did look at the mid caps too. Now the mid caps have taken out this high here, so there's no problem in saying that we're in a bull market here for these guys. So these still need to move higher here. So it is a question with these banks, really. If we go to the banks here somewhere, I mean, this is the metals and mining here, so that's really quite strong. The materials is really quite strong as well. There's other markets, the technology here, that's also taken out the highs here as well. So it's really, if I find the financials here, with the financials, it doesn't really matter for this purpose if we go into the excuse me here, just get a few things out of the way. This is the banking sector here. The finance sector is very much the same as well. So it really hasn't taken out these highs here, have they? So it's quite possible that these are lagging and can continue to move up through this space up here. There's probably a few things that we need to watch on the way here. First of all would be the 61.8% mark, which is coming into here, but I reckon that that's going to be pretty much the wave 4 coming into play here. I think it's going to be something like this here. So we'll look at this in a bit more detail, but we can expect it to mirror what's occurred over here, and also the 500 is really important here as well. So basically we've got wave 1 and 2 in here, and we've got this third wave in here, and I just think the third wave in here with the ASX 200 is not quite complete yet here, and it's obviously the banks that create this. So from around August, September and October, different banks have been doing different things, but they've been lifting off from that particular point there. So if we have a look at those, we can have a look at, we've been focused on that. We'll look at all of them. We'll have a look at ANZ here. So ANZ, this is just on the 4-hour chart here. This has really been moving off much earlier here, but this particular stock here, the ANZ, has got interests in Asia and so on. Now, Westpac has pretty much done the same as well, but just before I go over to Westpac, because this has got the nicest pattern here in terms of counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. Then an ABC for 2, then up for 1 and back for 2 here. So it's made a new high here, so it's definitely sort of on its way at this point. It certainly can come back and check because this trend hasn't been corrected yet. Just have a look at Westpac while we're here. It's nice to compare them all. So this is back in June for this one here as well. So if I use this as same as A and Z, well then we'd look at wave 1, ABC for wave 2 here, then up for 1 and 2. So in this case here, if I start counting this up here as a wave 3, I can see that it's not finished in this case, you know. So I can see that we would still need to do have a wave 4 in here and then a wave 5 up here. So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here to make the third wave here, then the fourth and the fifth. So, you know, even though that the banks have been very sluggish, they are making their moves, and that's sort of where they are. If we look at CBA as well, so CBA was actually late, as this is September, late September here, or mid-September, when it started to move off its low. Now, I would always very reluctant to turn bullish on this particular stock unless we've got 80 as a nice tested support, because all of this move up here can also be corrective as well, as an A and a B and a C wave up here, finishing up here. So getting support on here would really help with all of that. But even so, I can still see that even if I took out any mistakes here and put this wave 2 over here and then just track this one here, we've still got 1 and 2 and 3 here and 4 here and 5 here. And we have to remember that this is 9% of the ASX 200 in terms of weight. So it is a critical thing. But I can also say that this trend here is not completed here. This long trend coming in here as a third wave here, if it was going to pull back here, then it'll pull back to the wave 4 of 1 lesser degree here. This is where we can start going a little bit intraday here. So I'll just double check that with, a wave 4 pulls back 38.2%. So 38.2% and the wave 4 of 1 lesser degree. So if I just move that segment there and just... so that's the bottom of wave 4, and that's the 38.2% return. So if it was going to come back, that's where it's going to come back to. If it's going to move down today, that's where it's going to move to. Okay, and that will put weight on the ASX 200 as well. The other point that we need to make here, as well as I'm normally harping on about the bullish weekly cycle, which is in the education section under the members area there. So what we sort of look for on the Thursday is a bear day, and with the bear day we can look for opening higher and then trading lower for the day. And if we get that cycle here, then which we have, then we can look at being bullish on the Friday and the Monday moving up higher as well. So what I can say here is that if this low here, and the same for the ASX 200 as well, if this is breached here, then we need to look at 78 at that point then, and it can turn around and it can move down and then move up for the day as well. But we'd expect overall for Friday to be bullish as such, because of the Monday cycle here. But it hasn't pulled back to its rightful space here. If it does turn bearish today, it'll probably just do that for the morning session, So don't get trapped into turning bearish just yet on this, okay? Now let's go back in and have a look at the ASX 200 now that we've looked at all of that. So I'll just go to the 4-hour chart here so it's just a little bit cleaner. So this is kind of what I'm thinking, but what I was also thinking too is that I just don't think that this, it's possible that this wave falls in place here, but I don't think so. I think we've got one more move to go up to here before we get that. I think that we've got one more move up to here, then we've got our wave 4 coming into play here, and then we move up from that point there, okay? And if I go to the hourly chart here, then this is where we were sort of talking about the intraday before. So we can look at wave 1 and 2 to here. I have adjusted this a little bit here to make a better fit in here, but it's still pretty much the same and we don't have to sort of worry about it too much. So when we spoke last time, in a nutshell, we're expecting some type of correction across this level here, and that mixed in with the Wednesday and the Thursday being the sort of volatile days that can take out stops and so on here. Yeah, look, we can push up from here, the 38.2% retracement, in this case coming in from here now that I've made some adjustments to the wave 3 here. I don't take the high here, I take it from here because that's where the wave 3 is, an A and a B and a C wave here. So 38.2% retracement level is sort of in play here already. The market is finding support within group 2 here, so group 2 60 should be 65, 72 and 80 here. So it's got support there. So really, long as it stays above the 72 here in terms, I mean, it can spike through it, but to find it as a retested resistance, then like it spiked through it here, but hasn't really found it as the resistance here. So we need to play it long here. If the 72 here becomes the retested resistance, or the mark, or the 65 here, if the 65 becomes the retested resistance, then it's left group 2 at that stage, and it will drop down to the 50, and then it will mirror. It will bounce from this point here. The other thing that I just wanted to point out here too, this is the ASX 200 on a 1 minute chart here. This is the actual physical market, the cash market, and if we take it from this high in this instance here, then we can look at this as a 3-wave structure here. It doesn't appear to be 5 waves here. It appears to be 3 waves, even though it's a bit messy. So if this is an A wave, then this is the B and this is the C wave here. So we just expect this to move up from here, because it was bearish on the opening higher, trading lower for the day is what we expect on Thursday. So we got that. So Friday we can expect to be bullish. The US markets sort of fell out of bed a little bit, but they've recovered as well. So they're kind of at break-even point. So basically trade strength, and in trading strength here, this low here is quite critical on the cash market too, because if this is breached here, coming to the upside here, because if we're looking for 5 waves down, it'd be like wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4 coming up here, then wave 5 coming down here. But wave 4 coming up here can't trade into the price territory of wave 1 here. So that means that it would be bullish going through that point here on the cash market. Obviously that this is the support and the resistance through here on this market here. I just thought I'd show you that here on the cash market here. So yeah, and if we were going to move up here, then we'd be moving up into this space here for this here. Typically we would look for the 6,000, of course, but I'm not quite sure if we're going to get there. I want to see more of the structure here first. So the plan today is that if the 72 becomes a retested resistance, then the flag goes up that we need to be looking at for a short, and the short would be at this stage when the 5865 here becomes the retested resistance. At that point there, you can nail that down properly on your own machine. Yeah, so if that number there becomes resistance, then you can trade down to the 50 as a scalp, and then you'd have to take profit and wait for the 50 to become the retested resistance before you went down again at that stage. But if it's bullish at this stage, then look to buy new highs here, get a small position in here, and then buying on top of 5.9 as well here. So they're the levels that you need to be active, either long or short at that stage. Alrighty, cheers.